God, the most benevolent, most merciful. How do I you the words? I am a Muslim by heart. I'm also a visual thinker, and I have decided to tonight about an idea uh, we come to take along real life is the moment. So I want to begin by saying that whenever material is pulled in your mind, it's very important that I recommend if you're in um, where if you're not against just give yourself the wall. Two balls, one. I'm gonna turn it one. The mysterious soul is indirectly the mind. You believe some human beings talking about this? Better subscribe. I'm kidding. I don't care. You know, subscription's not gonna advance civilization, you know. But a subscription directly to the system admin may. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let me dive into this. Pretty much the idea came that the soul is indirectly being the mind. And I wanted to speak about this. I found this an interesting thing, but because I am Muslim, there I am limited in what I can say. And so when I was thinking about how can I speak about the soul, you know, in a permissible context, I decided to change the title from "The Soul is Indirectly the Mind" is that the Mysterian soul is indirectly the mind. And Mysterianism is a term where I'll read it for you, but pretty much it means that it's unknowable. There's something about it that's unknowable. See, it says Mysterianism is a philosophical position proposing that the hard problem of consciousness cannot be resolved by humans. The unresolvable problem is how to explain the existence of qualia, in brackets, individual instances of subjective conscious experience. I call these eventums in my school of thought, in terms of the various schools of philosophy of mind. Mysterianism is a form of non-reductive physicalism. That's exactly what I'm saying. There's something happening that it's irreducible. We can't. It's like beyond us. It's beyond the box that we're capable of exploring. So when I say the Mysterian soul, that means there is something about the soul that we will never know. And I am honoring the magnificent phraseology in the Holy Quran, where the soul is considered, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the soul is the secret of God. You see that the theology is very interesting when you really look at its geometry. Okay, and you're going to be like, Mr. Within, are you just talking about God? No, no, no. I'm talking as a human being that doesn't consider he's on a rock in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking to you as a human being that considers we're 8 billion creatures on a rock that we thought was in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually a system we're in. This system is being administered. It is an intelligent act to try to communicate with the system administrator of the system you're in. Right? So if you're an employee in a company and you're being mistreated, you go and communicate to the owner of that company. You try to seek out the causal position of that system. But the fascinating thing about the idea of God, this system administrator, is that it has to be uncaused in order for the infinite regress fallacy to not to be a fallacy. So what does this mean? This means the first domino was pushed by an uncaused being. God was beyond existence. God created existence. He created existence. So what I'm trying to say here, and guys, something I'm going to read here about Mysterianism and the definition I looked up for you. It says, some, in quotation, Mysterians state their case uncompromisingly. Colin McGinn has said that consciousness is, in quotations, a mystery that human intelligence will never unravel. Others believe merely that consciousness is not within the grasp of present human understanding, but may be comprehensible to future advances of science and technology. It's not just advances in science and technology. It's the complete reconstitution of what we are positioning as being. So, to carry on forth with this. So we have to start observing it. There is no other way. I don't know if I'm a brave soul or not, but there are moments that a part of me feels, why else am I existing for if I can see the path, if I can see further ahead on this path that I am. For me, what I like to see is on different levels. It's as if my body likes to see a physical advancement. My mind likes to see a physically advanced behaviorology of the species. And my soul wants to see the most advanced position, which is a return to its creator. I am a human being that is considering that I am a member of a system, that there is a system admin. I am a singularian. The system admin is the one and only and uncaused being, a being beyond worldly form. Nothing in the worldly form should be worshipped in some sense. And that is my view. And when I came to this conclusion, just philosophically, I realized that Islam was the only one, or only religion that was saying there is no need for moderators. Go directly to, this is saying in some sense, go directly to the original power of the realm. O human being, your mind has been given a story, but is that story enough? Are there questions unanswered? Are there mysteries that are just being accepted so easily and in some sense layered over by ignorance? It is the rise of the human species, but not the rise of the human species alone. It is the rise of the human species the sign of all defense power. Conclusion is that human being pretty much went through it forward to fast forward life. I want you to imagine a giant rock being creatures emerge. It does sustain creatures. Organisms. They suddenly realize that they are individuals. They are separate from the world they move around. Realize there's other life there. There are those different from them. Realize they are in a world. You realize just like in the world, it's just like my hello in say in someone's house that you said and now is it part of your mind be different who has a I am I been writing here. The question's on. The idea is that only if you would activate the most advanced skill that can is the fear creation of the fear of the because the ignorant and conscious and our own being with capability the illusions that the question is if we study the house and would who house is what happens so first of all somehow it was there the back fall and sometimes it reached out and started along itself. Furnace of survival with light and such so do forget the or mind pulled your body through Virginia the same memory and there you are alone. You are existence. My touch is your existence. The world is young. That could have been a world where there was evil, or could have been a world where there was nothing wrong. An empty heart. We could have been a world where there were ancestors and conversations of human civilizations fading like the land, these civilizations, word says, some there's some period about your push. There's very unique to all that other beauty and all other creatures. Your soul is multi-form because it's performing to God. I sign when I was full in the lost. Like the thing that was pushed that I didn't get this one get my no. When there is a system admin, it means, hey, a human organism that is limited to its imaginable findings. Based on what you are perceiving, you see, it's a matter of meaning being fiction and matter being non-fiction. But if we ask ourselves, what is watching the meaning, we're getting closer to the sentence, the Mysterian soul indirectly is indirectly the mind. So what does that mean? That means, is there a mind? Is there not a mind? It means that based on how deeply you're acknowledging it's considered. So if you just consider a being, like there's some beings, they manifest just to experience the level of bodyhood. There's some beings that manifest just in some souls that are in some sense born to experience levels of mind. There are some souls born to just be souls. You see, the notion that the walls have eyes is that it's like another. I see it completely different version. The walls have a heartbeat. So we got to realize it's like we're this, but on okay. Let me explain it secularly, and then I'll get to the religious view. Secularly, biochemical machine mechanism. We are this physical machine. It's like there's a physical generator, there's a non-fiction generator, and there's a fiction generator. And this is why falling in love is very difficult. Truly. To love something is very difficult. Unconditionally, I mean. So I'm treating it as I'm a member in a system that has an admin. The admin is beyond the system. It's not like a form I can speak to. But in my repentance, I find myself worthy to be in the presence of the Almighty. So, body, mind, soul, these words are being said. The body is our physical existence. Its task is survival. The mind is our non-physical experience, and our non-physical experience is is playing the video game that is in some sense fiction overlaying non-fiction. Right, so if when a person, and how do human beings suffer? Because the expectation of fiction is easier than the expectation of non-fiction. A human being can see some other human being have something they don't, and their energy levels can completely change. Man, I'm yawning and it's so early. It's just 11 p.m. Surpassing individual boundaries, I've written in the subtitle. So, what is the image here? Or what is, how would I say that the Mysterian soul is indirectly the mind. So right now, if I was to ask myself what is my mind, I'd be like, the mind's what's moving, speaking, seeing, communicating, calculating, all of this, articulating. So right now, if I'm seeing, like I'm seeing the steering wheel of my car right now, I'm going to say this is my mind seeing this. But then the sentence says the Mysterian soul is indirectly the mind. So if right now I am considering my mind is through my eyes seeing this seeing this steering wheel, right? So similarly, the whole thing is like it's a contextual shift that it was never the mind that has been looking at things. It was in some sense a soul that cannot be known. It's a secret of God in the sense that it's constituted. My opinion, at least for now, is that it is rooted beyond the causal realm. So the Mysterian soul is indirectly the mind, means that what is looking at the body is the soul. That means it's just the soul experiencing the world. Sorry guys, I have no idea why I'm yawning. If somebody says, hey man, how do you surpass an individual boundary? See, as someone who was very silly, I was a very silly kid, okay? I didn't take reality seriously, and it had hilarious consequences in certain areas of my life. So I saw it's comfortable. Okay. Guys, my thoughts, but I'm for I open that the comes to my heart Paul when the soul after there's control variable when it comes to the ones in a small size outcome, but get tired. You get tired. This is my question for you. Do you not get tired of your suffering? Can I writing? I just people like anyways, as as school is very familiar like I serious like we I didn't it's never sleep. Someone sleeps sleep with you. I do that to I put and a bet that couldn't is unnecessary. And I don't know if the unnecessary can be considered as stupid or not. Guys, feel free to do whatever you like with the talks. Listen, not listen. For me, my attitude to everything has changed. What's important is the system admin getting 8 billion souls to acknowledge the system. Upon their acknowledgement of the system admin, there's going to come a deep, deep sense of a restoration of the worthiness of being. Once this restoration of the worthiness of being happens, like, I don't know how to tell you guys, but there is something that in Islam, it is called shirk, S-H-I-R-K. And shirk means to not go directly to the system admin and to go to the mods, which is a sin, okay, which is wrong. So, for example, in polytheistic traditions, Hinduism, it's not wrong. Pray to this mod if you want money. Pray to this moderator, to this deity if you want strength, right? Like, that's the polytheistic vibe. But in the Islamic vibe, they're like, yo, we learned from Abraham, from Ibrahim, that like that man, that prophet, peace be upon him, he went to his father. Okay, he went to his father and he's like, Dad, what if our forefathers were wrong for worshiping like objects and idols? What if they were wrong? And his father's like, son, you could have told me this in private, not in front of my friends. You know? I'm kidding though. But of course, I'm not saying this disrespectfully. I'm just think of it this way: what the human being is, period of hundred. God is realizing like you're not the main event, and if this breaks your heart, whoever you are listening, you know, like that's not the point. The point is not to get wounded by expectations of that which has not happened yet. It's important to acknowledge the human position. It is important to realize, just we look at all the other species, like if you've ever been to a zoo or if you've ever seen like lesser species, they're living such simple lives. You know, the other day I was looking at like this tiny insect just flying like an inch, like between different straws of grass, like green grass. And I was like, wow, it's like, you know, somebody in a hover car going between skyscrapers. Like, for me, I realize it's like whatever we are, whatever scale of life we see, it comes to, like, you know, it comes to the ultimately divine decree. Like, I don't control the weather, you know, I don't control, like, you know, where that bird flies, you know, from the branch of that tree in front of me. Right? It's like there's so many things uncontrollable, and when we are born, we're not creatures that are trying to control life. We're just creatures that are happy to be here, and we're like, yo, let's play, right? And this vibe of like, yo, man, we're playing till we get there, right, is this strange vibe where it's as if like, yo, the playfulness is shifting, is creating a sort of middle cultural fabric where it's as if, all right, you messed up, all right, it doesn't matter, God, just ask for forgiveness from God and return to the cultural fabric. Oh my God, you did something great and you became, let's say you started self-worshiping, no problem. Just return to this cultural fabric that on some level we are human beings and we have an ethical standard. And even if aliens land down or we inhabit, extraterrestrial planets in the future, it would be in some sense a situation where we will not hurt the life forms on that planet. We will not invade other species. We will not kill species, right? We will reach that point where, in some sense, how would I say it? It's as if we will not kill that which has a soul, right? And so it's the notion of mankind reaching an epitome of just acknowledging that we are so capable, that the ethical goodness is possible. You see, because the younger generations need to be raised through gentleness, but after some point, the reality is not a gentle place. It's like, it's like your whole life is like training. So surpassing an individual boundary is like a human being like, okay, what is this mind? And they're being like, this mind is separating this body of mine from the world, therefore creating this atmosphere of individuation. Now this individual is going through this system. In its interactions with the systems, there's outcomes. These outcomes change it, the individual, and also the system to some degree, but ultimately the whole thing is being administered. And I'm kind of like that actor, right? Being like, yo, reminding all the other actors on stage to be like, yo, the director's filming, this is the great performance. And so rather than to think of life as if it's a fictitious infinitude, one must consider it as if it is an opportunity for a magnificent, to truly see how great that God's design is. And we all know God's existence is a masterpiece. This system is remarkable. It's like, there is this truth in just industry development where they're like, technology is constantly trying to, like in the tech sector, technology's greatest achievement is trying to replicate nature. So anyways, you see, just have a moment throughout the day where you're just fascinated by how it's all here and just acknowledge like the greatness of the system admin, the one and only point beyond the world. If you're like someone who's like, you don't know about religion, you could be just like, you could look at the sky and be like, thanks, bro. In some sense, the whole notion is to, in some sense, establish a relationship of not having your attention be stuck on the self, on others, or the world, which are all worldly forms, which can on some level infinitely loop. Not infinitely loop, but they infinitely continue. So in some sense, it's as if freedom from the world is beyond it. It seems, truly. For me, we see like the ancient pyramids, and we're like, wow, how did those guys build this? This is remarkable. For me, when I see the Holy Book, it is equivalent to that. It is remarkable how the conclusions were even made at that time. And purity is key. It's not just intellect. We want an advanced civilization that feels worthy. I think this idea of the system admin can unite every human being that can consider this world as an existential system. It's literally the only term that I've seen to connect, to unify the billions of religious people with the billions of secular people. Because we all acknowledge administration in all categories, in all areas of life. Whether you walk into a store, there's a hierarchy, or there's a organizational structure to that. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. May God forgive mankind and bless it with the greatness of a fascination that we in some sense built the advanced civilization, and it becomes impossible to forget God, the system admin, because we are the great potential. We're the design. We've been designed by the greatness beyond existence. Like that's like, imagine writing that on your resume. Thank you for listening, guys. The idea is, as we surpass our individual boundaries, as we realize the mind, like there's moments where we have like a bunch of thoughts and we have to decide between those thoughts. And as we decide between those thoughts, it's as if who's watching two thoughts at the same time. It's like if the mind is a thought in some sort of contained way. So the soul is that which watches the options prior to the decision in the inner sight of the being prior to the outer activation of it. But it's all being administered behind the scenes beyond our understanding. So it's important to find contentment. Just like we can't push a building with our hands, there are mysteries that we cannot, that are Mysterian. Anyways, thank you for listening. God bless.